I know a lot of folks are looking to stretch their money for building the best, cheapest PC you can buy. And when I say best, I mean it can play games without a sweat at 1080p. They look good, they're at good settings, at like ultra settings, and this thing will actually kick butt. Well guys, I am here to help, and I'm gonna help you do it for 650 bucks. You know, it's funny, a lot of people talk about how difficult it is already to select parts, but when you start to get down to like the budget systems, like the sub $1,000 systems, there actually seems to be just even less of a margin of error for like choosing the right parts, because you can have unintended and bad consequences. For instance, you choose some super inexpensive PSU and you know what, it may completely fry your components. Or you might choose the wrong motherboard and you could potentially see issues on your VRAM or RAM compatibility where, you know, it's basically cutting your processor in half because it can't even handle the amount of power that you're putting through it. You could spend the wrong amount of money on a GPU. When it comes to it, let's just say that it's a little bit harder and more murkier to kind of navigate. Well, guys, guess what? We took all of the time. We came up and thought and considered all of those possibilities to come up with all the right parts in all the right places, which I think is a country song. Looking for parts in all the right places. Okay. I know down in the comments below, which, you know, I love to see your feedback, and of course I want to see your feedback on the parts that we choose and the performance, but I know there's gonna be absolutely people who are like, no, you should have done this or you should have done this. Let me be clear. There are absolutely alternatives here when it comes to brands, etc. So feel free to put those things down below. But what I will say is that I think it will be hard for people to argue that the combination of stuff, whether that's, you know, at its core, the CPU, the GPU that we paired with it, even the PSU, that people will have a hard time arguing what we've put together. And you'll see this because not only am I just gonna go through and talk about the parts, but I'm also gonna talk about how they actually perform in gaming, what some potential upgrades are if you want to spend a little bit more. So I'm going to give you the whole package. Now I'm not just going to sit there and say like, this is the best PC to build for $650. But the point is that I'm also going to show you why it performs that way and give you some actual performance numbers. So let's kick it off with the CPU. And the CPU that we're going to be choosing is the 12100F. It's a 4-core, 8-thread Intel CPU for just over $100. Sometimes you can get it sub $100, but it's just over $100 at Newegg right now. This is all P cores, no E cores. So basically great for gaming. You don't have to worry about the thread director putting things in the wrong place. It's basically all P cores all the time, which means you're getting the best performance out of the CPU at all points. We're also gaming focused, so there's no integrated graphics card, which we don't really care about. Again, if you're thinking about doing stuff for productivity or content creation, this PC will do that for sure, but this isn't the focus of it. And the other thing too is it has a very nice and soft 58 watts for TDP, meaning it is very easy to cool. You can literally just basically put it up to your face and just, but that gets really old, so it actually has the stock cooler, which means you're gonna save money. So when you get the $100, you actually also get the cooler that pops on it. Next, let's talk about GPU. We paired this with the ASRock Challenger D AMD Radeon 6600. It's coming in at $229 over on Newegg. Now, you can look at other cards in this range, but given we were gonna go with an ASRock Mobo, surprise, we need to keep things limited on the amount of RGB and other overhead and be smart about what brands we kind of put into this build. The thing is that the moment you start mixing and matching brands, like you put Asus and ASRock or whatever it was, then you have Polychrome and you have all these different RGB applications, we're gonna be super smart about just putting this, you have one place to go to get all of your drivers, and that's everything ASRock. So even if your system is running amazing, you aren't gonna be bogged down by a ton of extra stuff on your system. So for motherboard, we went with an ASRock B660M Pro RS. Now, a couple things worth noting is this is a mini ITX board, which means it's smaller, and that means smaller case, but it also means less expansion. If you look and you just take a search on Newegg, or you search it even on Amazon, it's a little easier on Newegg, and search for boards, you'll see that once you go from mini ITX up to ATX, there's actually a $30 to $40 jump here. So mini ITX is gonna be your best bang for your buck. The one that we chose has plenty of VRM and headroom and everything to be able to do what you need to do with this board and not have any problem. It still has two M.2 slots, so you can upgrade drives if you want to. It has a good number of USB slots for the price, and it has good DDR4 compatibility up to 4800 megahertz. Not that that's a big deal. I mean, again, we're not gonna choose anything, but should you wanna go ahead and upgrade your RAM, which that would be a weird thing to spend your money on, but you could. Now, it doesn't have Wi-Fi, but we are gonna put some Wi-Fi options down in the description below if you want to add it. For RAM, we're gonna be using ADATA XPG GAMX D20. It's a 16 gig kit at 3200 megatransfers with a CAS latency of of 16. So nice, very tight timings, which means it's nice, fast RAM, perfectly fine for any gaming. And at 16 gigs, if you wanted to get another 16 gig kit, but it's 40 bucks. Over in Newegg, so if you wanted to spend an additional 40 to go to 32 gigs, you could absolutely do that. That is a place where I'd be willing to spend. I don't think going faster, but adding more could be a potential option. Now for storage, this is an important one. We went with the Kingston 1 terabyte NVMe. It's 50 bucks over on Amazon. A couple things. Number one, I don't think you should do anything less than 1 terabyte. To be honest, $50 for 1 terabyte is pretty much awesome. It's 3,500 megabits per second, which is plenty fast. It's also incredibly well reviewed as a value drive. It also has a nice 3-year warranty. And like I said, that endurance is also really good. So if you're constantly uninstalling and reinstalling stuff, this drive is going to be able to handle that without any issue whatsoever. For a case, I wanted something that performs well for micro ATX builds and has a great price. So I chose the Matrix 40 from Deepcool, which you can see our full review of right here. And it's hard to beat the price at $60 over on Newegg right now. Also, in stock configuration, it should keep the 1200F under control with only the exhaust fan, but I added 2 Be Quiet Pure Wing 2s, which are just a little less than $10 a piece over on Amazon. I would absolutely recommend adding them. I mean, it's always better to have airflow. You do want to put it in there. It's a little bit warmer than I'd like. It's not going to hurt the CPU or anything like that. But again, I would go ahead and recommend adding them, especially if you're in a warmer climate, like if you're like in Phoenix, Arizona, or basically the outback. I would install the fans. It's only $20, and it's better to have the cooling should anything go wrong. Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about PSU. And this isn't going to fry your system on startup, and it has all the right reliability and also the efficiency. So I went with the Thermaltake Tough Power GX2, which is $65 over on Newegg at the time of recording. It's gold rated, and it does give you some good headroom for higher end components if you want to spend a little bit more. In fact, you've got about 250, almost 300 watts. Guys, this is my thing. If you're trying to save money on this build, I've already got it at 650 bucks. Don't save it on the PSU. You could do things like 512 or maybe 8 gigs of RAM. I just feel like you should save like the 25 or 30 bucks for each one of those, but don't go lower on your PSU. So as configured with the fans and everything, you're looking at a great price, $650 1080p gaming rig that could even do some 1440p gaming at ultra if you wanted to. It could definitely do 1440p at mid and high settings without much of an issue. But let's not take my word for it. You know what? Let's go ahead and show you the performance you can expect in some of your favorite games at 1080p. Okay, so let's start with some single player games. For Grand Theft Auto 5, 1080p normal settings, you're looking at an average of 113 frames per second. For God of War, you're looking at 1080p ultra settings for an average of 59 frames per second. This is actually hitting north of 60 pretty regularly, but for a single player game, and again, you can always drop it down to high settings if you want to get that a bit higher. For Cyberpunk 2077, 1080p high settings, you got an average of 72 frames per second. You can absolutely bump it to ultra, and it still stays north of 60 frames per second. Forza Horizon 5, 1080p ultra settings, average of 107 frames per second. And then finally, you've got Red Dead Redemption, 1080p ultra settings. We're looking at an average of about 55. And then finally, for single player games, wrapping the whole thing up, Shadow of the Tomb Raider, 1080p ultra settings, an average of 100 frames per second. So let's just put this in a nice, beautiful wrap-up image if you just want to pause it right here. But as you can see, this does an absolutely amazing job. For $650, absolutely crushing it at the top end of some of the biggest games. So for you folks in the multiplayer arena, or you're wanting to get your esports sweats on, here's some of your top games right here. So let's talk about Valorant, 1080p, again, competitive settings. You're looking at an average of 219 frames per second. Completely unplayable at 219 frames per second. I'm joking, of course. Rainbow Six Siege, 1080p, again, competitive settings. You're looking at an average of 350 frames per second. For CSGO, 1080p, again, competitive settings, looking at an average of 341 frames per second. It's crazy to see $650 system that can push those 360 hertz monitors very closely. 265 hertz for most of these multiplayer games, actually pretty reasonably. For Fortnite, 1080p competitive settings, you're looking at an average of 272 frames per second. So definitely enjoying that brand new season that just launched. Apex Legends, 1080p competitive settings, an average of 210 frames per second. And then finally, you've got Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, 1080p competitive settings, sitting at an average of 125 FPS. So, absolutely just killer system. Again, great at both single player and multiplayer. And again, if you want to jump up to 1440p, these numbers are actually still great for multiplayer and even still good for single player, though you may have to drop down some of the settings at 1440p. Okay, so it performs really dang well across both single player and multiplayer. But if you have some extra money to spend, you can absolutely do it here. You have some great options here. even taking this system up to a beautiful 1440p gaming system that can play 1440p at Ultra, just depending on what your budget is. Again, all of the things I'm selecting, you're not gonna have to add an AIO, you're not gonna have to do anything complicated, and this is stuff that's easy to substitute in should you decide to purchase this system when you build it initially, or even if you buy it later and then you want to upgrade. So first up, let's talk about the first thing, which is a 12400F. For only less than $50 more, you could jump up from a 12400 to a 12400. Given this is focused around 1080p, you could see anywhere between a 10 to 15 frame uplift on your single player games, and even higher on your lower setting multiplayer games. No additional cooling needed, and it still keeps the build very, very simple. Now for $50 more for that, so you're taking, now you're at $700. If you wanted to go up to $750, you could go up to a 6650 XT with similar games I mentioned above. For the CPU, you're taking an additional 10 to 15 frames per, and you're getting very close to a very solid 1080 1440p Ultra system right there. Now, the other thing that you could add is all the way up to a 6700 XT if you want to push the PSU to the max. You're jumping in the system a whole new level at this point because it's basically $100 more, but you are now at that point in time unlocking solid 1440p, which is less dependent on the CPU and much more dependent on the graphics cards. That's it for this episode, but again, I want to put a note in here. This is completely and purely based on gaming, not productivity. This system is capable, it is very much capable of streaming and gaming, but you are talking anywhere between a 10 and 15 frame per second hit if you decide to stream and game off of the same system. For many of those multiplayer games, that's not going to be as much of an issue, but if you're talking about single player, you may want to look at some of those upgrades, including going to a 12400F, which would basically eat that cost all up, or even jumping up to something like a 6600 XT. And though I did mention some places where you could spend more on upgrades and make this a better system, the focus here on this particular rig was about maximizing the dollars you spend, then basically having like a flexible PC that you can then upgrade and blossom into like an ultra gaming rig. There is always some compromise with cost, and that is you are going to be limited on how much you can upgrade the system. Now, if you're looking for a system that doesn't compromise in terms of upgrades, it's more expensive, but you can check out our AMD $1,000-ish build right here. It also comes with a step-by-step guide on how to build it with performance numbers and everything like that. This is absolutely a system that will grow with you because it has a 360mm AIO and all that sort of stuff. I'd also love to know, would you like to see a step-by-step guide for a build like this? If this is something that we're seeing is very, very popular, and this is something you'd love to see a step-by-step guide, check down in the description below. If you see a comment already, hit that thumbs up button on that comment, so that way we know, yes, this is something that we could build a step-by-step build guide. So if you guys want to just build it and not have any issues, we could absolutely churn that out for you guys. Now, while you're down in the comments, because I know you're going to go down in the comments, you may want to sit there and comment on the parts I chose or whether we should choose something else, which is awesome, or you might just want to say, yes, I want a build guide. But while you're down there, make sure you slap that subscribe button, whip that like button, and ring that notification bell so we get a notification and you get a notification. I don't know why I would get a notification, but you get a notification each and every time we post a new video right here on Robeytech. Also, we do builds like this on our live show. I don't know if you've checked it out, youtube.com/Robeytech Live. Live builds just like this where we build systems like this. If you'd love this to be a live build, also let us know down in the comments below. We'll build it, we'll bench it, we'll show gameplay, all that sort of stuff if you guys want to see that a bit more. You also can check that over at twitch.tv/Robeytech. If you have questions or you want to talk more about this or are building it and have any issues, head over to our Discord server, discord.gg/Robeytech. Great place to ask questions. We have other tech and PC enthusiasts that love to talk about these very subjects and would love to help you get the PC built. And you know what? Hey, you might find a friend. Outside of that, guys, we post content everywhere. So follow us at Robeytech absolutely everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it, we're there making different content for all those different channels. Anyway, guys, that's it for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.